Hello and welcome to another Thrive Tribe Introduces. Today we have Jonathan Dawson, a certified accountant. Jonathan, welcome.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, good morning to you too. So I want to start off. We all know about accountancy. Well, we don't all know, but we all know what an accountant does. So let's dig a little bit deeper and look at your backgrounds to how you've got to where you are today.
Okay. I possibly would take slight issue about knowing what an accountant does. Everyone has an idea of what an accountant does, and the first thing
Yes.
people normally say is, "Oh, you must like numbers," which I do like numbers, so guilty. More, I like what they can communicate rather than the numbers themselves. I'm not particularly a maths geek. Um, but yeah, going back a long way now. My introduction to accountancy was slightly bizarre. I used to give my dad a break from looking after me. I used to go stay at my granny's in a little village called Tockholt in Lancashire at weekends. And I used to spend a lot of my time playing in this big old semi-derelict barn that was next door, actually attached to her cottage. Her must have been a little farm worker's cottage, I think. I had a great time. There was even an old vintage car with wooden spoked wheels in there that I used to pretend to drive. But then one weekend I turned up and it was all fenced off and I couldn't play anymore. And then a few months later, it had been confirmed into a beautiful family home. And the chap that had bought it and paid for that conversion was a local chartered accountant from a firm in Darwin. And I just thought to myself, if that's what being an accountant gets you, I think I'll do that. And I was probably only about 8 at the time, but that stuck with me throughout my school life. And then right through up to university when I did my certified accountancy exams.
Do you know what? That's really nice because I think a lot of us, me included, um, didn't really know what I wanted to do when I was at school. And a couple of our days, I had air traffic controller, which my vision wasn't good enough. Also, same thing, airline pilot. So yeah, to actually have that realization at a young age that that's what you want to do, I think it's incredible. So really well done for following your dream and your passion.
Well, it could just have been a lack of imagination, but I have enjoyed my career for the last 30 odd years, so maybe it was a good choice.
Oh,
There was actually something I didn't appreciate until very recently, was that my mum, who died when I was quite young, was actually an accountant. And so perhaps it's in my genes somewhere.
okay. Well, that's it, isn't it? And again, we do look up to our parents and the things that they do. So yeah, that's really good that you followed it on in the family.
Yeah, yeah.
So
As I
what?
said, I
So
had
after,
no idea.
yeah. Well, you didn't have any idea that's what your mum did.
No, no, no.
Oh, okay.
You know, she was a stay-at-home mum because I was a young child when she died.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
No, well, it's possible it makes you who you are, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. So, following on from university and obviously being qualified in the industry that you've always wanted to do, what's your business story from there? What's led you to be running your own company, accounting intelligence?
Yeah, well, backtracking just slightly to my entrance interview at uni, the one question that stumped me was the interviewer, the head of department, said, "So what do accountants do apart from working accountancy practices?" And I had no idea. Uh, but again, that was just probably part of my focus because what I did when I left uni was went into a local independent chartered accountancy firm to start to get some proper experience. And most of my career from then onwards has been in independent accounting practices. Um, and I've learnt such a lot in each one that I've been in. The only common theme is that they've all been looking after the SME sector, owner managed businesses. Well, the first firm, practice called Wheel and Sudworth in Huddersfield, who've been going about 140 years now.
Wow.
I did do some auditing then, and that was very useful because it clarified in my mind that I didn't want to be an auditor. I love working with business owners and making a difference. Auditing, not so much. But yeah, so I spent first half of my career so far working for other people and looking for that partner role where I could join an existing group of professionals and lean on their experience, but add my own. And then as I was getting close to 40, it occurred to me that I actually wasn't going to find that ideal practice to join, so I'd better just get on with it and do it myself. So that's when my business was formed. Um, I was very, very fortunate in that a lot of the businesses that I was working with at that time chose to follow me. So it gave me a good starting point. Um, and yes, it can be very challenging and very lonely being in business on your own. But my only regret is that I didn't do it sooner. So I love it.
Do you know what? And again, it's funny, isn't it? Because some people during their lives maybe take, have redundancy, which forces them to
Mm.
then look at something else and start for themselves. But yeah, I think to have that vision of what you originally wanted to do and then realize that, to get the same thing, you're going to have to do it yourself, I think is really nice. And again, it just shows how driven you are in terms of what you've managed to create for yourself.
I don't really think of myself as driven, but certainly committed.
Yeah.
Um, but like I said, I just should have done it sooner. But there you
But
go.
you're making it for last time. I know you've got
Well, and
dozens
there
and
is absolutely
dozens.
no point worrying about the things that you can't change.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So always about looking forward, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your mission with accounting intelligence?
Yeah, it's accountancy can be quite dry and it can be very much a box ticking exercise, but it never has been for me. It's about contributing, and I see it as a sort of a translation process. So I suppose that the mission is to translate the numbers to help people get the best out of their business, whatever that means to them.
Do you know what? And it's funny because I obviously I've spoken to you on a few occasions, but harking back to one of the larger firms we used to employ when we first started in the early 2000s, and that box ticking exercise, I think I said to you before, that's what we seemed to get from them. So there was no personal service. It was a large company, so you never had the same person twice, and you just gave them the figures. They did the accounts, lodged them, and that was that. And it was kind of there was no personal side. So yeah, for what you're achieving, I think is really, really good because figures do always mean something, don't they? And I say it's not,
Yeah,
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 it's about forward planning as well as obviously looking at the year that's just passed and how can you make things better.
yeah, yeah. And for those really well-run businesses, it can be as simple as just confirming what they already know about their business and making sure that what the numbers are saying ties up. And obviously, if you can find some way of adding something extra as well, something that you can still work on, which let's face it, with most businesses, there is something you can work on, then so much the better.
Yeah, yeah,
That makes
definitely.
me happy.
Yeah, that's it, and that's what makes businesses happy, isn't it? I know everyone that has a business that pays tax and national insurance and VAT and everything else. It is a cumbersome burden, but having somebody like you on board to actually help them understand what's there. And I know you give your time with the clients that you have, and that part of the service I think is really, really beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, tax isn't a dirty word because if you're not paying any tax, you're not making any money. But you've also got to focus on making sure you don't pay a penny more than you have to,
Yes,
ultimately. Yeah. There's a
definitely.
balance to be struck.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. No, I like that. Yeah, if you're not paying tax, you're not making any money. Yeah, that's a very valid point. So, what's your vision going forward with accounting intelligence?
Well, at the moment, as you know, I'm a one-man band, sole practitioner. Since pre-pandemic, I've not had any staff, and certainly since moving over to Lincolnshire, I haven't even looked to see what candidates are out there. But going forwards, I would like to have a team again. Um, Historically, over my own business, I've had 2 to 3 full-time equivalents, and that was a nice sized team. But the most important thing, of course, is to have the right people in your team, isn't it? Or your tribe.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so in the short term, it's to increase my Lincolnshire client base, because a lot of my clients are still based in Yorkshire and Greater Manchester. Um, as that starts to happen, then I will build a team of hopefully like-minded, possibly slightly younger people who can support my clients.
No, I like that. And with you at the helm, I'm sure they'll have a great experience, especially following some of the beliefs that you have, going forward. And I think that's really, really special. We get, you get the right people. And again, then that service spreads to the businesses of Lincolnshire, which I think is really, really good.
Yeah, hopefully. That's my aim.
Yeah, definitely. So for those people out there who are watching the podcast who thinks, yeah, I have an accountant, I just put in the figures. What benefits do you say you provide for individuals and for companies that you work with?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the first thing to say is no one actually has to have an accountant. Um, you can do it all yourself. Whether you want to is another matter. Um, my philosophy is that there's a spectrum of services, and it's a matter of getting on with your accountant, who being the right person, the right personality for you. But beyond that, it's finding you the right place on that spectrum. And that isn't a fixed point. At day one, you, as a young business, probably have time but no money, and not a great deal of accounting experience, and you might want to keep it that way. As a mature business, you'll have a lot more systems in place, you'll have a lot more knowledge and experience, and that will enable you to either do things yourself or know that you don't want to do them yourself. So let's face it, most people don't want to be accountants. I can't understand that myself, but nonetheless, it's true. And for me, that's a good thing. So they can concentrate on what they do best and delegate to me what they don't want to do. So I have clients who more or less give me everything to do, right down to physically paying the wages, um, and the suppliers. And then I have others where it's primarily an old-fashioned year-end service, but hopefully comfortable that they know they can pick up the phone anytime they want or drop me an email if something is troubling them. And they're all fine. They're all part of the mix. It's about meeting your clients' needs and enabling them to have the best business that they can.
No, I really like that. So as I say, you're not pigeonholing everybody into the same service. It's a bespoke service, isn't it? Depending on what
Yeah.
their needs are as they start off small and grow with you.
Completely bespoke. Obviously, there are fundamental components, but you're not bound to have any of them or all of them. Um, one of the one of the downsides of a lot of the strategies that are sold to accountancy firms to make them better is to make your clients fit into a box. But to my mind, that's not a service. The whole point of a service business is to provide the service that your clients want and need.
Yeah, no, no, I totally appreciate it. And I think that's a really good point. As I say, so whoever's going for a meeting with their accountants or getting new accountants, it is making sure you're not being pigeonholed. Making sure you're exactly out because I even think back to stuff like some of the paid for bank accounts that you get when you're a business, and there's a lot of freebies that they throw in with a bank account. And I'll be honest, some stuff that you'll never ever use.
Hmm.
And again, so you're paying for a service that you're not actually making the most of, which must be the same with the accountancy side you were talking about.
Yeah, completely. And there is no getting away from the fact that a larger firm has a much deeper resource than I have had and will ever have. But if you don't ever need to draw on that resource, why pay for it?
Yeah, no, totally. When I did some investigation, obviously before the podcast, on your website, you're associated with QuickBooks. Do you want to tell me more about that?
Yeah, QuickBooks is now almost exclusively cloud accounting software, bookkeeping software. But when I first came across it, which is well, longer ago than I care to think,
Yeah,
it was
to
desktop
confess to.
product.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely not confessing. And what never happens happened, and a client walked in off the street carrying a laptop saying, "We've been trading for a year. We've been using this QuickBooks thingy. Not sure we're quite getting it right. Will you take a look at it?" But yeah, I'm very happy to do that. Never heard of it before. And they were good enough to leave the laptop with me for a week. And they were right. They hadn't quite got it 100% right, but they made a decent attempt to. But within about 2 hours of starting to use it, it was just a massive light bulb moment for me because it was such an improvement on the software that we were using within the practice. Um, it was just ideal for non-accountants, which was our client base. We were dealing with owner-managed businesses who wanted something that was as simple as possible but covered all the bases. And QuickBooks just did that. It's plain English. You could use it on a really simple level or a really complex level. And they've continued on that trajectory, for the last 20 plus years. And I've supported and promoted QuickBooks ever since because I haven't found anything better. Um, some of the other cloud products like Xero are pretty close. Um, but QuickBooks, because they've got such a long track record, they have got deeper pockets. It's as simple as that. Anything that Xero introduced, QuickBooks will replicate. It takes a bit longer for Xero to mirror what QuickBooks are doing, and QuickBooks is always cheaper. Uh, I presume it's intentional. They just monitor what the competition do and
Yeah.
make sure that they're better value.
So to be fair, I remember using an accountancy software. When I say it was my father at the time who was doing the finance for us, beginning with S. And I remember looking at it, just thinking, I do not have a clue. It just seemed at the time so complicated. And even when um, to be fair, we stopped using it before they went cloud based. But yeah, it was just in a different language. Whereas
Yeah,
the accountancy software nowadays is written a lot more, as you say, a lot more in layman's terms. So even I can understand, the bits that I need to understand. I still need somebody to see the bit at the end of the year, or even a few questions during the year. But yeah, I think it's so important that you can pick a product you're confident with, and obviously your accountant is confident with as well.
yeah.
If, for instance, you've got somebody on another accounting system, is it easy to migrate across to a new one?
It is. If you're a software provider, it's scarily easy. Um, QuickBooks, for example, will actually pay to have your data converted for you free of charge. Um, I think they usually do about 2 years of data. And historically, the vast majority of those conversions have been from a product called Sage.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
that might be the one I was referencing initially there. Yeah,
Thought it might be.
yeah,
And I mean, Sage, when I even when I started my own practice, 90% of UK accountants were recommending Sage, and it was entirely desktop based, and it was very much by accountants for accountants. And as you say, it is another language. You had to put so much time and effort into learning how to use it. And even that only got you to a very basic level, more a recording level, to then get meaningful reports out was another learning process on top. And that's beyond running the business that you're actually supposed to be running. Um, the likes of QuickBooks and Xero, so many reports straight out of the box. And okay, we all fall into the trap of using accountancy language sometimes, but they were at least trying to make it plain English. And that makes a massive difference. I mean, from a selfish perspective, it means I've got less translating to do.
yeah, yeah, most definitely. So we always talk about the cloud-based accountancy software. So it's just flashed up in my mind about how AI has changed lots of things over the past 2 years. Is there a AI within the accountancy profession?
Yeah, for the most part, it's machine learning rather than true AI. Um, I suppose I'm not a techie person, but it seems to me that the machine learning is step one and the AI is step two. The machine learning is far more basic and it's just a matter of monitoring what you're doing and learning from it and then replicating it, whereas AI tries to take it a lot further than that. And it's had a massive impact on accountancy in general. I mean, it actually has been impacting for more than 2 years in accounting. In fact, I was thinking about this the other day, and it must be close to a decade ago. I used to go down to London to QuickBooks head office where we'd have a little meet with accountants from around the country and representatives of QuickBooks. And even then, they were talking about being a data company rather than a software company, an accounting company. And that's where they already knew that the future was going. Um, Over that intervening period, I've pre-pandemic, I had two full-time members of staff, one of whom moved on to a more glamorous role, doing accounts for Burberry, and the other one, unfortunately, was on long-term sick and it hasn't actually made it back into work yet. But the power of the machine learning meant that I could service the same client base without any staff from two full-timers and that's only that pace, that change has only increased in the meantime. So it's quite incredible, but it's also very imperfect. One of the things that I do with my QuickBooks clients is regular check-ins, either weekly or daily check-ins, to see where they're up to with their data and whether anything looks wrong. And machine learning, when it gets it wrong, it can get it very wrong. And of course, because it thinks it's learned what to do, it will recur. So if you don't keep track of it, it can be a bit of a mess.
Do you know
But
what? One of the things you mentioned there about the daily and the weekly check-in, I know when we've spoken before, and this kind of amazed me. So even with our accountants, we usually touch base once every quarter. But you were saying you actually have the ability to be able to look at the accounts on a regular basis, whether it be daily or weekly, and obviously if you spot anything, can then flag it up then. And I just thought that was a service like no other. You've got the ability to just quickly go in, have a look. If anything flags that you're concerned about or something that you just want to ask a question about, you can do it there and then, rather than waiting till a quarterly meetup or a 6 month or even a yearly, God forbid, you don't speak to the accountants for a year.
yeah, yeah, the traditional annual service, I hope, is dying. The quarterly one is quite popular because it fits in with VAT quarters, for example. Um, But when you've got the option of looking more regularly, if you're trying to add value, be an integral part of your client's business, why wouldn't you spend 5 minutes looking, you know, daily or weekly, just depending on need. I mean, if the client doesn't touch their books for a week, there's not much point in me looking back. But for some of my clients, it works really well because it's an opportunity to talk about anything that is coming up. The most frustrating for me going back a few years was where you'd see what a client had done, a decision they'd made, and there maybe was a better way. They could have done something that would have been more tax efficient because you didn't know about it until after the fact. There's nothing you can do, and that's not adding value, is it?
Yeah. I think that's probably an important message, that if you've got like a capital purchase or just an idea that you've got, is just run it past the accountant. Is there a better way to do it? Is there a grant? Is there something that could be useful, which could be tax efficient going forward?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even if the answer's no, which sometimes it is,
Yeah.
um, I think the check-in just means you get into the habit of communicating more, and that's got to be a good thing.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. No, I really like that advice. And still with the digital theme, again in the online, etc. I've seen making tax digital in the news again. Can you shed any light for those people that might not know about it as of yet?
Yeah, it's very much a one-way street, and fundamentally, it just means that everyone in business is going to have to report more frequently and more information to HMRC. Um, it should all have been implemented and settled in by now, but it's been beset with problems. For sole traders and partnerships, we're now looking at from April onwards. For limited companies, it's further in the distance. I think 2027 at the moment. Um, but what it will mean is that you will have to report at least 4 times a year whether you're VAT registered or not. And going beyond that, um, the end game is probably, not that it's been said so far, that we'll end up paying our tax more frequently as well. Which for some is a good thing, for others not so good. We've just gone through a period for sole traders where everyone's year end has been aligned with the tax year end. So that's proving a tricky process for many as well. But yeah, it's we have this ongoing undertaking by various governments that they want to be more light touch and reduce red tape. But just about everything that we're asked to do actually increases the compliance burden. And it's just about finding the most efficient way of meeting that. And going back a step, products like Xero and QuickBooks do at least make that process fairly automated and relatively straightforward.
No, that's really good. So thank you for that. And I say, if anyone out there is worried about accounts and stuff, just give people like Jonathan a call and just ask the questions, because I say he's a friendly guy. I was known him for a while and worked with him. He's always there, and he's a fountain of knowledge. And as you'll see from obviously when you've watched the podcast, he's just a great person. Makes a lot of sense. Doesn't use a lot of technical jargon, which for me as a business owner, I think is really important. We all have our specialities, and accounting, although I understand that, I don't really enjoy. So, and especially for that advice that you need in terms of, that POIE and everything else that goes into accounts, make sure you take some good advice. It's always, and if you're not happy with the person that you're with as well, person or company, again, have that conversation with somebody else. Don't be stuck with the same accountants for many, many years if you're not happy. Everyone has the option nowadays of finding the right fit for them. As Jonathan said earlier, it's all potentially about, do you fit together? Because it shouldn't just be you need an accountant. It should be, is there some synergy there, when you're working practices, and how you're going to get on.
Yeah,
Is that about right,
absolutely.
Jonathan? Yeah?
I can only echo what Mark said. I think there's a right accountant for every business, and there's no reason to stay with the wrong one.
Yeah, definitely. One last question before I go. So obviously you have been blessed with having your own business for quite a while, matching in with your your 8-year-old dream that you had. What advice do you give people who are looking to set up their own business?
I think firstly, go for it. Um, it is far more rewarding, uh, and even if you aren't successful in the way that you hope you'll be, you will still get a lot out of it. Um, it, Having a good idea is a good place to start, and then doing your research. I think
Yeah,
the more research you do before you start up, before you jump ship from an employment, for example, then the better chance you have.
no, I like that. That's really good advice. Okay, again, as you say, it's about doing that research, isn't it? And then taking that plunge and just following your dreams. There's hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of businesses in the UK. Billions across the world, and everyone started from somewhere. So yeah, I really love that advice, Jonathan. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
obviously, talking to an accountant's a good part of that research.
Yeah, definitely. And again, most accountants will offer, a free little introductory session.
I do.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And I don't know who said it. You'll probably know who said it, but the saying about if you do something you love, you'll never work another day in your life, I think is very
yes,
true.
yeah. And it is so true, isn't it? If you find something you're passionate about, you won't have that feeling every morning of, oh, I've got to go to work. You wake up with a spring in your step because you know you're so passionate about what you're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
most days anyway.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Hey, Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. So that has been Jonathan Dawson from Accounting Intelligence. His contact details are on the screen and they'll be below in the podcast description as well. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it, Mark.
Take care.
Take care. Have a great day.